The sole presidential debate between Kamala Harris and Donald Trump is nearing its end, and it put on display not only the startling disparities between their stances on policies from abortion to the war on Ukraine, but their differing approaches to this benchmark in their campaigns.
To talk more about it, we're joined now by political analyst Jack O'Donnell, managing partner at O'Donnell and Associates. Jack, thank you for joining us. First question, who do you think won? I mean, this is still going on, as we know, but who won? Who is doing a better job tonight, in your opinion?
I thought it was very clear that Kamala Harris won tonight. She came out prepared. She came out forcefully. She also really got under Donald Trump's skin. So I also think Donald Trump lost. We saw a very angry Donald Trump. We saw someone who wasn't talking policy, wasn't hitting his issues. I think it was a clear win for Harris tonight.
It seemed like the vice president was more prepared in that she was offering something that was substantive. There was many times where Donald Trump would be asked a question, say, for example, about race that just happened a few minutes ago, and he veered from race to, I believe, the unrest during 2020 in Minnesota, out to immigration, then to the economy. That kind of pivoting, which perhaps is popular in his rallies, we're all familiar with that. Do you think it plays well on the debate stage when there are tens of millions of Americans trying to make a decision?
No. I think Donald Trump had a real opportunity tonight. Plenty of things to criticize Kamala Harris and the Biden administration. He waited till the 85th minute to really try to tie Kamala Harris and Joe Biden together. I mean, it doesn't mean he didn't take shots at Joe Biden before that, but he really needed to tie them together and find ways to be critical. He didn't do that. She kept talking about plans, the economy, the middle class. She even invited people to go to his rallies. I think she really got under his skin tonight. Part of that was the criticism of the rally, dismissive of him. I also thought, and this maybe is minor in some ways, but the off-screen, right, the listening screen, she seemed engaged. She seemed at times dismissive, but never angry. He seemed angry. He seemed a little confused, Joe Biden-esque, if you will.
There was a lot of back and forth. There was some name calling. There was some, a lot of, well, you're doing this wrong, you're doing this wrong. Do you think that helps when the voters are watching, or do the voters really just want to see, what do you have to think, that other person can speak for themselves?
I think most voters, even many who have made up their minds, would have liked to have seen a much more substantive debate tonight and 3 months ago. I do think that voters are crying out for policy, for substance, for details. And we didn't see an enormous amount of that tonight. Again, I think Kamala Harris came closer to doing that and tried to pivot to that a couple times. But I do think voters want more. But this is what we get right now.
This campaign, we've said it many times, and I'm sure we're going to say it many times over the next 2 months, is going to be won in the margins. And not just even the margins, but it's sort of the margins of the 6 or 7 battleground states that are in play here. Do you think we have not, as a country, heard a whole lot from Kamala Harris at press conferences of moments that are not scripted? Here was an opportunity where she was not scripted for the most part. She stayed on message. Do you think what she did tonight, her performance tonight, what she did offer, the details that she did, is that enough to sway some of those folks in the heart middle that is this race?
Well, I think it's a start, right? I mean, I think she still has a ways to go. We've got 56 days, and I think we'll hear a lot more from her and about her. But I think there was a threshold tonight that she needed to reach, and she bounded over it. She was clear, concise, she was confident, she was forceful, but all at the same time being articulate. And again, she appeared to come back to, I have a plan. She talked about the middle class. She was, I thought, exceptionally good talking about abortion tonight and why it mattered and women's bodies. I thought it was a very strong performance.
How many people tonight already knew who they were going to vote for? What percentage are we trying to sway here? And does this type of thing sway many people?
Most people who are watching this already have their uniform on, right? They especially with someone like Trump, they've made up their mind. They like him, they hate him, they're okay with them. They're running a powerful ad in Pennsylvania that says, you might not like the way I act, but you like my policies. But he didn't hit that tonight in the debate. I do think, you know, we're talking about 1% of the overall electorate or less, right? We're talking about 10,000 voters in 6 states who make the difference. Did this change all their minds? No, a lot of them didn't even watch this, right? They're going to watch you guys tomorrow morning. They're going to watch you later tonight to see what happened. But I do think anyone who did watch, the test is Kamala Harris ready to be president? And she passed that with flying colors.
Last question as we leave you, because we are running out of time. Because of Donald Trump's performance, we have been saying this is possibly the only debate of this. We've got 56 days left. Do you think, given his performance, they might try to do another one?
I would be shocked if there's another debate.
I agree.
Okay. Jack, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We really appreciate it.
Thanks for having me.